Excellencies, distinguished guests, it's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to Astana International Forum. We are very happy to be with our friends and colleagues representing governments, diplomacy, business, and academia. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our special guests, President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, President of North Macedonia, Gordana Sijanovska-Davkova, the Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Alan Berset, former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and heads of the United Nations organizations and other distinguished participants. We are very hopeful for a fruitful exchange of views on global economic affairs, regional cooperation, and other acute problems that emerge in the international agenda. We meet at a time of profound global uncertainty. It is tempting to describe this moment as a crossroad, as an inflection point in world affairs. But such formulas should be left for historians to fix. What matters now is how we respond. That choice lies with us in the decisions we make and the values we uphold. Conflicts and wars continue to spread across continents and communities. As of last year, 52 states were experiencing armed conflicts. Meanwhile, the economic impact of violence reached $19 trillion, nearly 13.5% of global GDP. Yet beyond the numbers lies a more troubling reality. Modern conflicts are increasingly protracted and complex. They often involve a multitude of actors, including non-state groups, and are fueled by deep-seated grievances. These factors make lasting peace far more difficult to achieve. And the most concerning aspect of this kind of global situation is that it fully contradicts a new trend of artificial intelligence, which is gaining upper hand in bringing the whole humankind to entirely renovated and still unknown reality with new senses and new approaches. And in this context, military conflicts and even wars based on historical judgments or political animosities look absolutely outdated and even bizarre. Instead of making wars, we must embrace our peoples, first of all the younger generation, to become more engaged in making progress in creating enlightened societies. While conventional conflicts demand urgent attention, we must also focus on even more challenging perspective, the growing strain between nuclear-armed states. Today, 9 states possess a combined arsenal of over 13,000 nuclear weapons. Experts warn that the risk of use is increasing, whether by miscalculation, accident, or escalation. The consequences of a single detonation would become disastrous. Scientists estimate that beyond the immediate destruction, it could trigger global climate disaster and destroy harvests. We know what this means. Kazakhstan lives with a historical legacy of 450 nuclear tests. We relinquished our inherited nuclear arsenal in the name of peace. Today, we continue our advocacy for non-proliferation of nuclear weapons and biological weapons. We must recognize that the threats to global security are not only geopolitical. The post-war global order is fragmenting. Protectionism is rising. Multilateralism is faltering. In this emerging disorder, the task before us is clear: to preserve cooperation where it still exists and to restore it where it has broken down. Kazakhstan approaches today's turbulent world with a spirit of constructive engagement. Our foreign policy is based on the belief that dialogue is more powerful than division and that sovereign rights must be respected. There should be no room for nationalistic hubris and ignorance of historic and cultural traditions of the peoples. Meanwhile, there also should be due respect to the right of all national minorities to speak their languages and cultivate their cultures. That's what we in Kazakhstan strongly pursue, the unity in diversity. Dear friends, over the past few years, Kazakhstan has undergone profound economic and institutional reforms. Our goal is clear: to build a more diversified, inclusive, and future-ready economy, one where growth is not just sustained, but shared. We have taken nation-building efforts to get modernized Kazakhstan and to make sure our country will definitely become just and fair. Through a nationwide referendum, we have amended our constitution and reformed the key institutions of power. We moved away from a super-presidential system towards a presidential republic with consolidated system of checks and balances, based on the concept of a strong president, influential parliament, and accountable government. I firmly believe that this concept remains the most appropriate model for Kazakhstan's political system. We have enacted a limit of a single 7-year term for president. This unprecedented step, not only in Kazakhstan, but beyond, from my point of view, will make my country politically safer, economically more vibrant, and more civilized as a society. I am convinced that President is a state manager hired by his people for a certain term, in our case for 7 years. As to our parliamentary system, it enjoys a wider representation of civil society, new political parties, women, youth, and people from vulnerable groups. I also firmly believe that no further development is possible without a functional system of protecting human rights, reflected by the concept of law and order. We acknowledge that our reforms are taking place in a highly fragile geopolitical environment. But as the saying goes, the road will be mastered by the walking one. We will not deviate from this strategic path. Reforms will be continuously carried out. Despite global headwinds, our economy grew by 5.1% in 2024. Foreign direct investment reached record levels. Freight through the Trans-Caspian international transport route surged 62%. Yet, our vision is not measured in numbers alone. These reforms aim to create a new social contract, one where prosperity becomes a public dividend. We are investing in human capital, expanding opportunities for young professionals. Our immediate task is to reduce regional disparities to strengthen our middle class. That's why we continue to deepen our capabilities in key sectors, from digital technologies and artificial intelligence to clean energy and value-added manufacturing. We are making significant progress in digital transformation, reflecting our desire to become IT hub in Eurasia. We place emphasis on artificial intelligence, and the goal is to become an academic and innovation hub with a number of foreign university branches and research and development partnerships. Kazakhstan is launching the most powerful supercomputer, which has already been delivered here. Finally, we are planning to create a pioneering pilot zone called Crypto City, where cryptocurrencies might be used for purchasing goods, services, and even beyond. Being the source of 40% of the world's uranium, Kazakhstan puts nuclear energy as a top priority in its national strategy. But development cannot be sustainable without addressing the climate emergency. Central Asia is one of the most climate vulnerable regions on the planet. It is experiencing warming twice as fast as the global average. In response, we are advancing a pragmatic and regionally coordinated climate agenda. Our commitment includes membership in a number of international organizations and arrangements. In 2026, we will host a regional ecological summit in partnership with the United Nations, a platform to combine Central Asian strategies and global ambitions. Kazakhstan remains committed to a stable, integrated, and future-oriented Central Asia, one rooted in mutual respect and regional solidarity. 2 months ago, the United Nations General Assembly formally established the United Nations Regional Center for the SDGs for Central Asia and Afghanistan in Almaty. This is a milestone in our multilateral development engagement. This center will support joint projects, offer technical expertise, and coordinate international cooperation. Distinguished guests, the threats we face are clearly transnational. Yet our responses are becoming increasingly fragmented, and the institutions built for global cooperation need to be duly complied with a world which is more fragile, more volatile, and more contested. Kazakhstan firmly believes that middle powers should have a vested interest in an equitable and inclusive global order, which needs to be reassessed and overhauled. Accordingly, middle powers should be ready to shoulder more multilateral responsibility. Later this year, we will mark the 80th anniversary of the United Nations in New York. Founded in 1945 by 51 states in the aftermath of a devastating world war, it offered a bold vision for a more peaceful and secure world. Today, the organization counts 193 member states, a vastly more diverse, complex, interconnected global community. Yet, the core structures of the United Nations, particularly the Security Council, remain largely unchanged. This disconnect between the institutional framework of 80 years back and the realities of today undermines the organization's credibility and effectiveness. Critical decisions that affect billions of lives cannot be made by a handful of nations alone. That's why Kazakhstan supports the expansion of the United Nations Security Council, including broader regional representation. Structural reform of the Security Council is essential to ensure that the United Nations remain relevant and truly reflects the world as it is, not as it was. Big powers should voice their commitment to preserve peace and security by upholding a major principle of protecting territorial integrity of all states. We all should strongly remain adherent to the United Nations Charter with no biased and selective approaches to its principles. Thus, we would be able to restore trust and authority of the United Nations. Dear friends, you have traveled to Astana from all parts of the globe, bringing your expertise, experience, and perspectives shaped by different worldviews and priorities. This intellectual diversity is precisely the reason the forum exists. Multiple futures lie ahead, some full of promise, others full of peril. Will we move toward inclusive progress or destructive fragmentation? This will depend not on the proclamations of the few, but on the cooperation of the many. The Astana International Forum was created to support that cooperation by offering a platform rooted in mutual respect and open exchange. Our theme this year, Connecting Minds, Shaping the Future, is both a call and conviction. It reflects our belief that global challenges cannot be solved in isolation, and that diplomacy must evolve beyond formal protocol into deeper, more human forms of connection. We are entering a new phase of global development, where human-to-human trust, knowledge sharing, and civic collaboration will shape the new architecture of international relations. Therefore, we must widen the cycle of cooperation, the scale of cooperation. Kazakhstan stands ready to contribute to this shift as a convener of ideas, a builder of consensus, and a trusted partner across regions and cultures. Let us make this forum a space of reflection, but also of resolve. Let us seek dialogue, but also direction. I look forward to the conversations ahead, and I wish you a productive, inspiring forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you to President Tokayev there. Thank you for sharing your vision. Thank you for bringing us together. And on a much lighter note, thank you for the weather, because we love it when it's sunny here. Okay, let's continue. Can we please join me in welcoming the President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, who's going to speak next.
Excellency Kasim Jomart Tokayev, President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Excellency Gordana Davkova, President of the Republic of North Macedonia, distinguished leaders, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege to join you today, and I thank President Tokayev for his gracious invitation. Kazakhstan's prosperity is a reflection of its bold leadership and the resilience of the Kazakh people. This forum has become a vital platform not only for dialogue, but for pragmatic cooperation in a world that is increasingly fragmented. This year's focus rightly underscores that global challenges are deeply interconnected, and our responses must be just as integrated. This calls for a shift in the way we approach foreign policy and international cooperation. In Rwanda, we have learned that external alignment without internal stability only deepens our vulnerabilities. Our priority is therefore focused on what delivers real and measurable benefits to our people. This includes prioritizing peace and security, strengthening economic self-resilience, and accelerating regional integration. our engagements with international partners are grounded in a mutual respect and reciprocity, not dependency. This is the principle that should apply to the global economy and how it functions. The COVID pandemic exposed how fragile and unequal our financial systems have become. Since then, many developing countries remain trapped between rising debt, shrinking fiscal space, and harsh borrowing terms. There has been much talk of reforming the global financial architecture so that it is fit for purpose. But the problem we have is not just structural, it is political. The rules of the system are quite often enforced unequally. At the same time, the criteria for assessing financial risk are based on outdated assumptions that disadvantaged countries in the South. This restricts access to capital, increases costs, and it delays progress. But while we push for change, we must also act with greater urgency to build resilience from within. That means managing our resources more effectively, enhancing industrial productivity, and investing in human capital development. It is encouraging to see the renewed momentum behind South-South cooperation, including between Africa and Central Asia. This is not an alternative to global engagement, but a necessary complement that provides a stronger collective voice on issues that affect us all. We thank Kazakhstan for opening this space, and Rwanda stands ready to do its part. I thank you.
President Kagame, thank you so much. I want to ask you your point about building resilience from within, because it's something that you've talked about now for many years, whether that's education, partnerships, as President Tokayev talked about with other nations, Kazakhstan, of course, being one of them, select investment. Is that the only way, perhaps, forward for small and middle nations to build resiliency against the challenges, the greater challenges that they face, and then be able to shape the future that we want?
I believe, regardless of whether one is small, middle, or big power, resilience is going to bear out everyone at the as a starting point. That's where I start from. And for us in Rwanda, we learned from our history. When genocide was taking place in our country and the rest of the world looked the other way and not paying attention to what was happening, we learned that lesson. And that's how we began putting our pieces together and trying to build from within and bringing everyone to contribute and creating that level of trust that gave us an opportunity to build institutions that were accountable to our people's needs directly. But this does not stop us from cooperating with the rest of the world. In fact, we got support from a number of friends and partners. But this would not have been helpful or would not have had impact if we were not standing together ourselves and doing our part from within.
And that support may have been less forthcoming too. Can I ask you about the security challenges as well? And we can name numerous of them: the situation in Ukraine, Gaza at this moment, closer to home, Sudan, even on your border with the Democratic Republic of Congo. Do you think tailored solutions like mediation, engagement from nations such as the Qataris or other governments, the United States, others, can find solutions? Or do you think in the end the path to peace is found in the specific regions, in your case, the African Union? Because none of these solutions are simple and no one wants a Band-Aid that ends up in more violence down the line.
Well, I mentioned that we learned our lesson, and not only from our own, but from what we see elsewhere. Security is very important, and peace, for any development or meaningful one to take place. But what we have also learned is that some of these conflicts have root causes. They just don't emerge from nowhere and you have conflicts. No, there are these histories that have not been resolved over many years, and they are the ones fueling conflicts over and over again. Now, what we have across the world, we find there is more paying attention to managing conflicts rather than addressing these root causes. And all you expect, therefore, you can cool down the situation, and a few months, few years later, you have the same crisis getting worse or others emerging, branching from what you are trying to resolve. So you don't just manage conflicts, you address the root causes. And that's what has been lacking in most of the cases that I'm aware of, including our own in the region, the one we have in the region affecting all of us. So, and we have the whole world paying attention, making a lot of noise, but all they do is just have ceasefires and short-term peace and discussions over it and so on and so forth. And then it spirals back to where we were at the beginning. So the root causes must be paid attention to in order for the lasting solution to be found for the conflicts.
Understand the history, understand the vested interests, and understand where nations lie.
Right.
Very quickly, you're a pragmatist, I think, as a leader, but what I also notice is you're an optimist. What keeps you optimistic? Because we've listed a whole load of challenges already today.
Well, I start with knowing where I have come from as a person and my country. You also understand that the same weaknesses or failures that create such tragedies like my own we faced in our country of a genocide, there are people behind that. There is politics behind that. But in the recovery and where we are today, you know that there are also people who can do good things and who can refuse to be crushed by the weight of these problems and emerge and deal with them and look for toward a better future, as has happened in our case.
Change is possible. I think that's the message.
Change is possible.
The President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, please join me now in welcoming to the stage the President of North Macedonia, Gordana Silianovska-Dankova.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first, a heartfelt thank you to President Tokayev for his hospitality and for organizing the Astana International Forum. When I read the year's motto, Connecting Minds, Shaping the Future, I remembered a wise saying that thought is faster than light. Tikhon said this. And we need to use the collective wisdom and experience to think fast or faster in order to cope with the pressing challenges of our time. We are living through what Dr. Ahmet Davutoglu recently described as a systemic earthquake, understood as a geopolitical and geoeconomic tremor shaking the very foundations of the post-World War Second Order. Today's multiple crises stem from deep tectonic shifts undermining the principles that shaped global governance 80 years ago. The rule-based multilateral system is now fractured under the weight of growing multipolarity, being increasingly paralyzed when most needed. The United Nations are drifting dangerously close to a League of Nations moment, and we know how that ended. Instead of mobilizing global efforts to address pressing issues such as peace and security, climate change, digital transformation, and rising inequalities, it seems that we are making a step backwards to an older world order, that of Machiavelli, Hobbes, and Clausewitz, where rules are replaced by power. And as the wise Lord Acton said, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Without multilateral institutions and procedures, without international law and principles to tame the powerful and to protect the weak, we might be faced with the question, are we destined to reenact the Thucydides-Melian dialogue all over again, with the strong doing what they can and the weak suffer what they must? I disagree. Some realists would probably argue that there is very little we can do and that the rule-based international order is already beyond repair. Their advice would be to leave behind the international agreements and conventions as unnecessary burdens and to seek shelter in regional blocs and alliances. However, this leaves us with the possibility, dystopian future of increasing geopolitical and geoeconomic rivalry and even confrontation, reinforced by the effects of the climate crisis. So, politics, instead of art of the possible, is reduced to what Harold Lasswell describes as who, when, and how wins. Or we can listen to the arguments of pragmatic optimists, as President Tokayev says, and try to revitalize multilateralism, making its institutions more resilient to systemic earthquakes. As a president of a territorially small European country, I firmly believe that small countries, along with middle powers, should be the greatest supporters of effective multilateralism, with the United Nations in the center again. This requires substantial reforms in line with the Pact for the Future that we adopted last year. The Security Council should be expanded, reformed, and democratized to make it more accountable and more responsible in maintaining international peace and security. The General Assembly should take its rightful place as the principal representative body, not only for debate and deliberative democracy, but also for policy making. The rulings of the International Court of Justice must become binding for all, and 80 years after its foundation, I think we are ready for a woman Secretary General of the UN, because in a world dominated by strong men with weapons, we need strong women with wisdom. How can we achieve this? No country can reform the system alone, but principled coalitions can drive change. Small and medium-sized nations, free from hegemonic ambitions, can offer moral guidelines and innovative leadership needed to revitalize multilateralism. We can achieve this by building bridges, starting with our own regions. When meeting leaders from my region of Southeastern Europe, I always emphasize that we need to reason regionally, cooperate regionally, and support each other regionally. We have seen the countries from my region seeking support from more powerful EU members to advance their own EU integration. I use the word reunification, while obstructing the progress of their Balkan neighbors, often over questions unrelated to the Copenhagen criteria for EU membership. In order not to remain a geopolitical periphery, we need to follow the example of the Scandinavian or the Baltic countries and focus on the key problems of our region, from brain drain to climate change. We need deeper infrastructural, energy, and digital connectivity, which will help the region become more competitive on the wider European and global market. We need to have one voice. But these bridges should go beyond the region. Complementary to our multilateralism and our regional cooperation is our desire to forge strategic partnership with nations with whom we share similar values and interests. These strategic partnerships serve as stabilizing factors during crisis and support economic development for the Macedonian citizens. We also need to support the revitalization on international forums, forming regional and cross-regional networks committed to institutional renewal, and investing in the resilience of use of multilateral tools and agendas. We can also use cultural diplomacy to create bridges and support the initiatives that amplify the voices of small nations. The question is not whether we will succeed in every effort, because most probably we won't. There are some powerful geopolitical and geoeconomic factors that influence agendas and priorities. The real question is whether we will endure on this path during these times of great testing and uncertainty. Because at the end of the day, with all its imperfections, a rule-based international order is still the best option for peace, stability, and sustainability. But they must not become prey of fear that paralyzes but cautiously embrace hope that activates and engages. Thank you.
Madam President, I have so many questions after that and not enough time, but I want to do a quick show of hands in the room. Who is in favor, and I think Secretary Gutierrez will forgive me, of the next head of the United Nations being a woman? Raise your hands. Now, I see some gentlemen with 2 hands there. Great. You've often talked about Europeanizing, feminizing your nation. What does feminizing the United Nations, and I do bring it back to the individual member states, mean? What does feminization mean for peace and security in the world? As you said, time for some more female leadership.
Oh, for me, as a professor on temporary work in politics, indeed, something important is always present. For example, do you remember the Robinson Crusoe and Friday? I imagine Friday as a woman. Why? Because of the quality of a dialogue. Because I have already mentioned, for me, also like in ancient times, politics could be the art of possible. And sometimes through cultural diplomacy, even the art of impossible. So I don't intend women to replace men.
No.
No. Feminization for me is humanization. It means not to forget the perfect creator, nature, and to follow its rhythm. Half of the population women, about half of men. So working together, we are stronger. And indeed, even in the famous song of James Brown, it is clear that even in the lyrics, this is the man's world. Unfortunately, the man's world is led by Mars. But we need Venus with olive tree in the hand. We women also deserve our own political room in international politics, as Virginia Woolf says. We deserve that. So I think that only together we could change the world. So how can I answer why? Imagine 80 years after we raised this question, what about women on the highest position in the world?
I think, yeah. I'm imagining your lectures were totally packed.
I'm missing the students.
Yeah, very quickly. I guess my question is how? How do you unite middle powers in order to make the kind of reforms that you're talking about, even in your own region? Speaking with one voice is challenging. Very, very quickly, how?
We do, even at the moment, small and middle countries, I think that are more than strong states. If you analyze the procedures in the United Nations, easily you could see that many platforms even the Pact for Future, actually was voted and supported by small and middle countries. So if we are led by principles and values that are missing, both in EU but also in the world, there is no problem to be many in one. Let's rethink the thoughts, the mind of the Pope Leo XIV. What he said in theological way, led by philosophy, that we are many, but in one, we are one. So that's my intention.
The art of the possible. Madam President, thank you. The President of North Macedonia. Okay, please welcome to the stage again the Director General of the UN's Food and Agricultural Organization, Chudongu. Thank you.
His Excellency the President of Kazakhstan, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so pleased to join you at the opening of the 2025 Astana International Forum, which is an important platform to inspire bold ideas, foster fruitful dialogue, and strengthen collaboration at a time when the global challenges and collaboration are so need to be properly addressed. Guided by the theme, Connecting Minds, Shaping the Future, this forum brings together leaders, thinkers, and partners committed to find these shared solutions, from food and water security to energy, resilience, and climate actions. I always say that we need to work together, think together, learning together, and contribute together. Especially we need collaboration together more efficiently, more effectively, and more coherently. This year, 16 October, we are going to celebrate 80th anniversary of the FAO, established after March of the World War II. We celebrate 80 decades of collective action towards peace, development, and food security. Peace is a prerequisite for food security, and the right to food is a basic human right. The celebration of our 80s, it is a reminder of how far we have come and a call to strengthen our shared mission going forward. We need to continue walking the talk with even more passion and more effective action. 20 years ago, this time is just started, but now it's one of the most modern cities in the world, with harmonious with natural green land and sky blue, and water is clean. That's action-oriented, impact-oriented, result-oriented. You can't build a beautiful building just talking or just remain in the design and the debating. Ladies and gentlemen, Central Asia stands at a vital crossroads geographically, economically, and climatically. This region is not only home to extraordinary culturally, ecologically diversity, but also faces global challenges from land degradation and water scarcity to climate vulnerability and the demographic pressures. Let us remind that the Chinese wisdom of these challenges also provided great opportunities. With its vast land resources, rich agrobiodiversity, and a strategic location, Central Asia has enormous potential to transform its agri-food system into drivers of sustainability, resilience, and a better life. This transformation is critical not only for the region, but also for broader Euro-Asia continent and beyond. Nearly 64 million people in the Europe and the Central Asia region still cannot afford a health debt, with Central Asia recorded at the highest rate of unaffordability at 16.3%. Food security, you always talk about the basic food, health food, but based on my experience and the culture in the East Asia, we have 4 levels: basic, nutrition, health, and functional food. So still we have 2 levels to aim. Not only have enough bread, rice, noodle, or meat, or vegetables, but we need health. That's very essential for the better life, better quality of life. Water scarcity is a fundamental part of the agri-food system, yet it's under increased threat due to the scarcity, pollution, and weak infrastructure. FAO agent holistic design and coherent action on water conservation, transboundary cooperation, and the sustainable agri-food practices secure the region's future. To seize the potential, address these challenges, increase the investment in innovation, water infrastructure, and inclusive development are urgently needed. We must bring together government, the private sectors, civil society, all partners from across the international community to catalyze change, because the cost of inaction far exceeds the cost of action. Kazakhstan, as the largest country by the territory in the Central Asia region, is playing a leading role in shaping this future. Under the vision of His Excellency the President of the country, serving as a food hub for Euro-Asia and also beyond for the world, Kazakhstan has demonstrated strong commitment to regional and global food security, environmental sustainability, and the regional and global cooperation. I'm so proud of the FAO Kazakhstan Partnership Program that will further support, strengthen, and accelerate transformation of the country's agri-food system to be more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable. This program spans 10 years and includes a number of the breakthrough initiatives to be implemented. So we have autonomy, another 10 years if we have any further update. So it means we designed 20 years partnership. When we celebrate 100 years anniversary of UN and FAO, we will look back what we have done during next 20 years together. Our vision must extend beyond policies and technologies, and must also focus on people, especially women and the youth. The future we are shaping today will be lived by the youth of tomorrow. Their health, well-being, and livelihood depend on the tools we equip them with today. We must empower young people with knowledge, tools, and opportunities to become agents of the change as a future scientists, farmers, policymakers, and leaders. Of course, business people. At FAO, we see the youth as a powerful drivers of transformation. My first UN agency established FAO Youth Committee, and also established the Office of Youth and Women. In Kazakhstan, young people make up nearly 1/3 of the population of the 5.7 million. More than 2 million live in the rural areas. Their energy, creativity, and commitment are essential to building the sustainable and inclusive society. This is the true meaning of today's theme: connecting mind, connecting young, innovative mind. And then we found the innovative solutions, approaches, and shaping the future and for the better future for all. Dear friends, I wish to conclude by commending Kazakhstan as a regional leader, championing sustainable policy, driving innovation in the food system and the water system, and shaping a more secure and resilient future for Central Asia and for the world. Let us continue to work together for the 4 betters in the region and beyond to ensure the better production, better nutrition, a better environment, a better life living on behind. I thank you Thank you so much.
Director General Chu, thank you. I just want to touch very briefly on what you said about potential of the Central Asia region, but also Kazakhstan too, because I know they're ramping up agricultural output. How big are we talking? Are we talking sort of breadbasket of the world style potential?
Based on my humble experience, 45 years in agribusiness and rural development, mainly in China, also in Europe and in Latin America. And of course, I stay in 6 years now in Europe, in Italy. Kazakhstan was much underestimated. Because the world, there are two popular maps. One is the European central. If you look at the map in Europe, and Italy always big, because Kazakhstan, even China is small. And if you look at Latin America map, they put also their central. But Kazakhstan has 2.73 million square kilometers. They can feed 1 billion easily, based on current technology and management and the policy. If we work together, have enough investment and the constitution, innovation, and so on and so forth, and the extensions. Even soil and water management, we have the big potential, but the technology and the potential approach and solution is there.
So that's the target, feeding 1 billion people, Mr. President. It's been a lively few months. Let's be clear. Oh, you can clap. I like that. That's good.
Thank you.
It's been a lively few months after a challenging few years, I think you'll agree, for global food security. I think what's clear is that you can't control government policies. You can't control donor willingness at any given time, and I'll say that diplomatically. And as you said, you can't control climate change to a certain degree in the short term. How do you build resilience into the system today? Very briefly.
I think you are very interested in resilience. And the politicians have their own solutions. As a scientist, as a professional organizations, we have our own how to survive. I'm from a very poor family. We can spend one day with 10 cents, and also we can spend $10 a day. Even now I have a quite high salary. I don't spend 1,000 euro a month. So, as an organization, be ready, prepare yourself. Once you complain your donor is our donor. Yeah? You can't control donor and the government. The FAO is the intergovernmental special agency. Any government I respect, big or small, rich or poor. That's why I come very small island. I established a special office for small island and the landlocked LDC and LDC office. Again, first in the history. So you have to offer services for the different members who need the most. And get the rich members understand. But once you complain to some donors, be first, change yourself. When I arrived, I didn't ask any additional money to support my initiative. But I started, first year is the efficient year, second year is the effective year, third year after the pandemic, we said we need an extraordinary action. So year of extraordinary. And the fourth year is a year of the excellences. And now I come my second term, first is rebuild, and the recovery, and the reform. We started reform at the first year, 2019. So you build up the efficiency, effective. They invest $1, they can create a $10 impact. So impact-oriented, result-oriented, and they can complain. Any people can complain, but you do your best. And then let them less complain, and then you get more and more support. So far, I'm so happy with all the top 20 donor countries. From America, China, Japan, Germany, British, host country, Italy. Also here, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, you name it.
But
they all support.
If anyone wants to donate any more,
yeah.
he's open and available for business.
Another issue, we should trust the professional multilateralism.
Okay.
And the GCF, GEF, World Bank, Asia Development Bank, Africa Development Bank, and others. So Islamic also, they are more professional. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Secretary General, a foul. It's a lot of thank yous. Now that is important, sir. Don't create enemies. I'll remember that. Now ready to join us on the stage, the Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Alain Berset. Thank you.
Thank you, dear President Tokayev, dear President Kagame, dear President Sijanowska-Davkova, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Let me maybe start thanking and congratulating President Tokayev for this wonderful event here with the Astana International Forum, a very important occasion to meet, to discuss together the challenges that we are facing all together in the world of today. And let me maybe start with a question, because what strikes me at the moment, it is the old discussion about democracy. You know, we are always speaking about backsliding democracy. What does it mean exactly? How long can democracy hold? 6 months? 1 year? 2? And we gather here in Astana, the crossroads of East and West, North and South, to discuss security, to discuss energy, climate, and the economy. But let us be honest, these cannot be secured if democracy fails. What does it mean? Democracy fails when, for example, we weaponize courts for political gain, or it fails when impunity becomes the norm and accountability the exception. Democracy fails when disinformation convinces us that truth is just another opinion. It fails when politics stops standing for something and starts standing against everything. It fails when we slide into a system that restricts liberty in the name of protecting it. And we see this every day. We see this in Ukraine, we see this in Gaza, we see this on the social media, we see this on the streets across Europe and beyond. And in the face of these threats, we must rethink what we mean by security. There is no longer hard or soft security, only the urgent needs to defend what holds us together. And what we need is a strategy, a global strategy for security, and it includes democratic security, one that protects the institutions, the rights, the freedoms, and not only from outside attacks, but from internal erosion also. And this means tackling issues like terrorism, migration, corruption, and cybercrime, and to do this together. It also means rejecting double standards, because double standards undermine public trust and damage the credibility of everyone. Above all, democratic security means making of the values, democracy, human rights, the rule of law, the first line of defense. But we must all be on our guard. The real danger is trading democratic security for the security of democracy without even realizing it. And we slide into a system where rules are bent in the name of sovereignty or urgency, where laws against foreign interferences go too far, where the line between critique and destabilization disappears, where the public sphere is surrendered to algorithms. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we must not sleepwalk into that future. And that is what we are working on, a new democratic pact, a pact that puts values at the heart of the security and that puts action at the heart of the values. What does it mean concretely? A pact built on 3 urgent priorities. First, educate, so we can tell truth from lies. Second, protect, to reinforce democracy wherever it is in retreat. And the third element is to innovate, to adapt our institutions to fast-moving, cross-border, hybrid threats. What we are living through is not just another crisis. It was underlined before this morning. It is not just another crisis, it is a crisis of the order itself. And no country and no institution can face it alone. And in times like these, it could be tempting to believe that values can wait, that democracy, human rights, the rule of law come second. But it is precisely in moments of reckoning, when the world shifts, when impunity rises, when technology outpaces regulation, and when nationalism and protectionism challenge cooperation, that the values must guide us to build a solid and stable ground for security, a stable and solid ground for cooperation and for peaceful relations. And we must stand together with all those who are building democratic security, here obviously in Central Asia. And thank you, President Tokayev, also for mentioning those elements before, in Central Asia, in Europe, in Africa, and far beyond. Thank you very much for your attention.
Secretary General Berset, thank you so much for that. Forgive me, and I say this with the utmost respect, but I think there's going to be a lot of people in this room listening, and when they hear the words democratic pact, they sort of roll their eyes. Not another pact. What makes this, with the 46 European nations in the Council of Europe, what makes this different? What makes it accountable? What makes people listening to this think, okay, this is actually going to mean something and mean action?
Well, thank you very much. You know, first of all, it is not the 46 European countries and the rest of the world. It is together, with different perspectives, with respect, with different contexts, and with a huge respect for different contexts. I mean, we must learn from each other, and it goes in all directions. That's the first point. Second point, I mean, we have two possibilities: to be pessimistic and depressed, and to have the impression, okay, it is very soon the end, and it is like it is. Or the second element is to act, to take action, even if it's difficult, even in difficult times, even now, particularly now, because we see that we are facing crises from multilateralism, peaceful relations, and stability of the world. And then the wording, you know, what means pact? I come from a country, Switzerland, that was built on just the willing to be together 700 years ago. And we are very proud about our pact. It is called pact. Let us not be so impressed by the world. It is not because a positive world has maybe turned as something negative right now that we must accept this. Let us go. The wording is not that important. The point is to work together, to work in a global sense for security, peaceful relations, and cooperation, and it includes, obviously, democratic security at the very center.
I mean, democracy means different things in different countries. I did look down your member list, and I did notice two nations that were absent, and one was the United States and one was Russia. Given some of the challenges that we've had voiced several times here about the UN Security Council in particular, does that help in reaching agreement, absence of certain nations?
I mean, in a time like this, when we note that multilateralism is in a quite difficult situation to be able to deliver, I think a part of the answer could be also to work a bit more on the regional level.
Right.
I mean, we have very strong regional organizations. I just represent here the Council of Europe, 46 member states, and a huge diversity, a huge diversity from Iceland to Azerbaijan, from Norway to Turkey. I mean, it is North Macedonia, obviously, a huge diversity, but we have on all the continents very strong organization. Think about the African Union, for example. Think about the ASEAN. Think about, I could name a lot. And it is probably important to work also in this regional dimension and then to be coordinated between us. That's why I'm also trying to, to improve this collaboration between regional organizations. I think it is additional to the very important role of the UN. It is an important element where we can also bring some points to deliver and for challenges we are facing now.
But I think you're echoing what we've heard many times now, which is the expansion of regional agreements, talk, dialogue is very important. Secretary General, thank you so much.
I thank you.
Great to chat to you.
Thanks.
Okay, last, but certainly not least, please may I invite Ban Ki-moon, the President and Chair of the Global Green Growth Institute and the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, to the stage.
Your Excellency President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, His Excellency Paul Kagame, President of Rwanda, Her Excellency Gorbana Silyanovska-Davkova, President of North Macedonia, Excellencies, Heads of United Nations agencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Kaya Latang. It is my great pleasure and honor to join you today at this opening session of Astana International Forum 2025. And I extend my warmest congratulations to the government of Kazakhstan for hosting this vital platform for global dialogue and cooperation. And this year's forum, which follows cancellation of last year's forum due to the catastrophic flooding, is needed and welcomed all the more. Thank you for hosting this very important meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to take a moment to commend President Tokayev for his steadfast global leadership in advancing Kazakhstan's role as a regional convener and a global voice. As the former UN Secretary General who helped realize the Paris Climate Change Agreement and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, I would like to emphasize my strong support, particularly for its contributions to green growth, climate resilience, and sustainable development. This year's theme, Connecting Minds, Shaping the Future, reflects the kind of leadership we need today, one that is collaborative, forward-looking, and rooted in shared responsibility. As the President of the Assembly and Chair of the Council of the Global Green Growth Institute, GGGI, a treaty-based intergovernmental organization of which Kazakhstan is a member state, along with the Kyrgyz Republic, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and most recently joined Tajikistan. I am especially encouraged to see Kazakhstan and its neighbors in Central Asia embracing this vision. The grave challenges posed by climate change, environmental degradation, and economic transition cannot be solved by any one country alone. No matter how powerful, no matter how much resourceful one may be, because these threats transcend national borders, political ideologies, and any other artificial lines that humans may draw. These very serious challenges require a unified regional response, and I am very pleased to see the growing momentum for green collaboration across Central Asia, as demonstrated at the recent Samarkand Climate Forum in April, where the leaders of all 5 Central Asian countries came together in a historic show of solidarity. GGGI is proud to support this regional movement, and I am immensely pleased that GGGI has been working closely with the governments in this important region, including Kazakhstan, to develop green investment frameworks, support sustainable finance mechanisms, and help accelerate the shift to low carbon and climate resilient green economies. Kazakhstan, with its vast renewable energy potential and growing commitment to sustainability, is well positioned to lead by example. By investing in clean energy, green technologies, and cross-border collaboration, Kazakhstan and Central Asia can chart a course toward a prosperous and sustainable future. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my sincere hope that this forum will serve not only as a venue for dialogue, but as a springboard for real action to deepen partnership, unlock green investments, and deliver real results that benefit both people and the planet. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I extend my warmest congratulations to the organizers and participants of the Astana International Forum 2025, and I am pleased to firmly reaffirm that the organization Global Green Growth Institute commitment to working alongside all of you for a more environmentally sustainable and socially inclusive future in Central Asia and beyond. Thank you, Rahmat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You wear many hats and have many iterations in your career, and I know you're just warming up, but I just want to take the United Nations hat first. I looked at interviews that you gave 9 years ago when you left, and I pulled a couple of quotes. You were asked about your greatest disappointment, and you've mentioned some of the successes, but you said, we need more unity, more solidarity and compassion, and we lacked it. You also said most conflicts were caused by leaders because they lacked, among other things, a strong commitment to basic human rights. And we've heard that already. And you know, I look around the world today and I fear we're in a worse position. Would you agree with that? And how do we enact the kind of reforms that people are talking about, given the backdrop and the challenges we face?
I'd like to emphasize that according to my experience as a Secretary of the United Nations, dealing with many political leaders, business leaders, and even civil society leaders, it's very important to have sense of unity and partnership. This is a very important factor which will really make our work, even though however challenges there may be, I think when we are united, I think we can overcome all this. This is what you mentioned in this connecting minds and shaping the future. Connecting mind, this is unity and solidarity. There is not a single country in this world, however powerful, however resourceful one may be, one cannot do it alone. We are facing all global challenges which require global efforts. For that, there must be a tripartite partnership together, stronger. One is, of course, government leadership. The leaders of the government, each and every country, should work together as a unity. Then you have to reach out to business leaders and, more importantly, civil society. So government business communities, civil society, when they are united, there is nothing which we cannot address, particularly when it comes, we are suffering from rapidly approaching climate change phenomena. Again, however powerful one country may be, like European Union, America, and many well-to-do countries, they cannot do it alone. But what I am concerned at this time, as of today, the leaders are much more divided. It happens from the top. It happens from a country which used to claim that I'm the leader of this world. Then I sincerely hope that the leaders of the world just think about the future of our planet and future of our succeeding generation. I think that's their political responsibility. Now I'm no longer Secretary General. I will do my moral responsibility working together with you. That's the hard lesson which I have learned. That's the lesson which I'm going to tell you to be united as a leader. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.